can you sue the NFL for lacking diversity in their head coaching rankings, but the representation you have suing the NFL has less diversity than the NFL in which you're suing?
Former head coach of the Miami Dolphins, Brian Flores, sues the NFL for racial discrimination and says the league is run like a plantation after getting fired. Does he have a case, or is he a hypocrite? Hey guys, my name's Jason Wesley, and this is not a podcast. So I am a lifelong Miami Dolphins fan, and the Miami Dolphins have had some of the most odd records ever set in the NFL. Now, one of the best records is the Miami Dolphins are the only team in NFL history that has won every single game and the Super Bowl. And this past season, the Miami Dolphins also set another record in NFL history. The first team to lose 7 games in a row, but also win 7 games in a row in the same season. Now, this story might not be any record of any sort, but former Miami Dolphin head coach Brian Flores is suing the NFL for racial discrimination. And the timing of this case going into Black History Month has people wondering, was it planned? Here's the AP. Fired Miami Dolphins coach sues NFL alleging racist hiring.
This morning, a bombshell lawsuit with the potential to upend the NFL. The former head coach of the NFL's Miami Dolphins, Brian Flores, is accusing the league and multiple teams of systemic racial discrimination that is keeping black coaches from advancing in their careers. In this lawsuit, Flores and his attorneys call the league racially segregated and like a plantation, citing multiple interviews they say were a sham held just to meet the league's diversity rules, and say this is why so few NFL coaches are black. The NFL denies these allegations.
Now, this is the Rooney Rule, a policy that went into effect in 2003, requires teams to interview candidates of color for head coaching and senior operation vacancies. And now, civil rights leaders call on the NFL to replace the Rooney Rule. Now, this is Brian talking about a text exchange between himself and Bill Belichick.
A text exchange you had with Bill Belichick, whom you worked with for years at the New England Patriots. Coach Belichick writes you, "Sounds like you've landed. Congrats." You write back, "Did you hear something I didn't hear?" Belichick writes, "Giants?" ? You write back, "I interview on Thursday. I think I have a shot at it." Belichick writes, "Got it. I hear from Buffalo and the Giants that you are their guy. Hope it works out if you want to." Then you write, "Coach, are you talking to Brian Flores or Brian Daboll? Just making sure." Then Belichick writes, "Sorry, I effed this up. I double checked and I misread the text. I think they're naming Daboll. I'm sorry about that. Bill Belichick." So Belichick is telling you, days before you're even interviewing for the Giants job, that he thinks Daboll's got it locked up.
Yes, and that's what we're trying to change.
Belichick tells you the job's going to Daboll, a white coach. So you think at this point, what, the only reason the Giants are interviewing me is because they have to?
Yeah, the Rooney Rule. That's the first thing that came to my mind. But my other emotions were, why aren't I getting a real opportunity here?
On First Take, Stephen A. Smith and Keyshawn Johnson react to Brian Flores' text exchange with Belichick.
I think there's a lot of people that's trying to make Belichick look bad. I don't necessarily agree with that. He has a relationship clearly with Brian Daboll. He has a relationship with Brian Flores. Bill Belichick comes across as an older curmudgeon type dude that's a bit acerbic and abrasive at times with members of the media. I've always debunked that because when I see him at a Boston Celtics game, the man can never be kinder. He can never be kinder. He's absolutely a pleasant person to go and speak to and talk to. It's just that he got a problem with people asking him about the Patriots during the season. That's all the media. But people mistake that to assume that he don't have relationships, and he's got a whole bunch of relationships.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I remember years ago, the great legendary Jim Brown. Jim Brown has a very, very, very close relationship with Bill Belichick. And there's a lot of black players that have a very close relationship with Bill Belichick. And so this notion that, you know what's he doing talking about it? What's he trying to say? Or he knew, well, he's connected. So that's going to help Brian Flores' case. But in the end, I don't think it makes Bill Belichick look bad. All he was doing was reaching out and congratulating somebody.
Right. Bill Belichick would text me the same thing if I was being hired.
Right.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
I mean, in fact, prior to this, I had a text exchange going on because I was trying to make sure to him to get on the show about Tom Brady. Right. So Bill Belichick knows a lot of people in the National Football League. Mm-hmm. He is connected to the New York Giants, regardless.
Right.
He knows those owners.
Yeah.
They were there when he was there. They're going to communicate with people like that. Hey, what do you think? as they do their background checks, Brian Dable coached with Bill Belichick for a short stint. He coached down in Alabama with Nick Saban. There's relationships there. There's antennas that connect.
Yeah.
So you're going to have those sort of things where Bill made the mistake and he admitted to it.
Got confused.
He got confused.
Yeah, he thought he was talking to Brian Flores.
Next time,
Brian Dable when he was
next
talking to Brian
time
Flores.
you put the last name on there and
That's
not
right.
just have Brian.
Yeah.
Right.
In the end, this is going to drag Bill Belichick in
Yes.
because of the depositions and all the different things they want to know.
Which you
what
and I
else
both
do
know.
you know
Right.
other than what these text messages are?
That's where I was going.
Where are the rest of the text messages?
Right.
Well, you know, we only seen this one. Where's the exchange from you and the New York Giants
Right.
individual or whatever individual you got that information from? Maybe it didn't come from the Giants. Maybe it came from somebody else that's connected to the Giants. But it starts to have
Well,
a
that's
snowball
when
effect.
discovery takes place.
And that's when the discovery part of it takes place. But as far as Bill Belichick goes, he's not egregious. He's not hiding things and playing games with Brian Flores at all.
Well, the Giants actually put out a statement in response to these allegations.
A lengthy statement from the Giants, which says, among other things, the allegation that the Giants' decision had been made to hire Brian Daboll prior to Friday evening, January 28, is false. And to base that allegation on a text exchange with Bill Belichick, in which he ultimately states that he thinks Brian Daboll would get the job, is irresponsible. The text exchange occurred the day before Coach Daboll's in-person interview even took place. Giants ownership would never hire a head coach based on only a 20-minute Zoom interview, which is all that Mr. Daboll had at that point. In addition, Mr. Belichick does not speak for and has no affiliation with the Giants. Mr. Belichick's text exchange provides no insight into what actually transpired during our head coaching search.
So the Giants are saying that based on this timeline of the text exchange, you were texting Bill Belichick the day before we actually interviewed Brian Daboll. But he also says that he had an interview with the Denver Broncos because of the Rooney Rule and claims the racism was linked to them being late to the interview.
You state that in an interview that you had with them, that John Elway and another Broncos official showed up an hour late, looked disheveled. It was obvious to you they had been drinking heavily the night before the interview. You say it became clear they only were interviewing you to fulfill the provisions of the Rooney Rule. What specifically can you remember about that interview?
So I've had 9 interviews with NFL clubs. There's been one interview where anyone was late. And it wasn't me that was late, it was the interviewers who were late. That was with the Broncos. I think there was a reason why they were late. I think they were, they'd been out the night before. I think that's the reason why.
What made you believe that? I don't mean to interrupt you, but what gave you the impression, if you will, that they had been out drinking the night before?
Well, I mean, when you sit at a table with 5 people who are interviewing you, you know you can tell who's asking questions, who's into the interview, and who's not necessarily in the right state, I would say, in that moment.
I think, and you can tell are not evidence, Brian.
But even then, obviously, I put my best foot forward and showed why, I was a good candidate for that job. I'm always going to do that. But I certainly did not feel like I was taken seriously, and that I was just there as a Rooney Rule.
But I thought that being on time was a sign of white supremacy culture due to the monochronic versus polychronic differences. Y'all think I'm joking. According to a bias of professionalism standards written here from the Stanford Social Innovation Review, research from a 2017 Career Builder survey in the United States, for example, found that 41% of all employees are terminated due to continual lateness to work in a world driven by capitalism. Professionalism is based on a monochronic relationship to timeliness and work style. It centers productivity over people, values time commitments, accomplishes tasks in a linear fashion, and often favors individuals who are white and Western. Within Black and immigrant communities, there's often a deep ancestral connection to polychronic cultural orientation. Some people of color push against this by adopting the monochronic orientation, but many hold on to their polychronic work style. As a result, they may lose jobs more often in a culture biased against their norms. So the argument could be made that the interviewers were late to the interview due to their attempt to adjust to the polychronic work style, also known in the Urban Dictionary as CP time. So, a couple things. There are 32 teams in the NFL, and in 2021, there were 3 black head coaches, which means that black head coaches represented 10.66% of head coaches. According to Pew Research, black Americans represent 14% of America. According to the Census Bureau, black men represent approximately 6% of that 14%. So, in reference of representation of society, black head coaches are overrepresented when compared to the American population. According to Statista in 2021, people of color represented 71% of NFL coaches and 57.5% of that being black. In Brian's lawsuit, he states, many players desire to coach for their post-playing careers. Others desire to work their way into management level positions at one of the NFL's 32 teams. Unfortunately for black individuals, that is easier said than done. 32 teams employs a black head coach, 3%. Only 4 of the NFL's 32 teams employ a black offensive coordinator, 12%. Only 11 of the NFL's 32 teams employ a black defensive coordinator, 34%. So the case could be made the other way if we're speaking in representation numbers. Shouldn't only 6% of the NFL be black? Now, what if this standard was also applied to the NBA, where it's about 80% black players? Now, the Denver Broncos and John Elway came out with a statement.
The Broncos say the Flores interview started on time at 7:30 a.m. and in quotes, the allegation from Brian Flores directed toward the Broncos in today's court filing are blatantly false. Our interview with Mr. Flores regarding our head coaching position began promptly at the scheduled time of 7:30 a.m. on January 5th, 2019 in a Providence, Rhode Island hotel.
And while I was not planning to respond publicly to the false and defamatory claims by Brian Flores, I cannot be silent any longer. With my character, integrity, and professionalism being attacked, I took Coach Flores very seriously as a candidate for our head coaching position in 2019 and enjoyed our 3.5-hour interview with him. Along with the rest of our group, I was prepared, ready, and fully engaged during the entire interview for Brian to make an assumption about my appearance and state of mind that morning was subjective, hurtful, and just plain wrong. I interviewed Brian in good faith, giving him the same consideration and opportunity as every other candidate for a head coaching position in 2019. Elway separately said in that statement that they had flown in overnight after interviewing a candidate in Denver because, see, at the time, Flores working for the Patriots in the playoff chase that resulted in the Super Bowl 53 championship, they had to go to him. So if he was disheveled, and that was Flores' conclusion, that they were hungover, that the Broncos contingent was hungover. And Elway said if we looked disheveled, it was because we were on a plane all night and didn't sleep, basically. So
the NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell came out Wednesday before the Super Bowl saying, as for the Rooney Rule, we're not having success. We're not having the success we want with head coaches. How do we evolve that rule? Or do we have a new rule? Do we need to figure out some other way of being able to achieve that outcome? We're not going to rest until we find that and we get those kind of outcomes that I think are mandatory for us. And now we get to the most ironic part of this entire case. Listen to this.
I did a little perusing, Marcellus Wiley,
Did you?
of the law firm that's representing Brian Flores. And I noticed a complete, utter lack of diversity in that law firm. All of the partners in the law firm are white. And if you go to the law firm's webpage, every person of the 19 people on that webpage, you will not find one black person. You will find one Asian individual. So wait a second, Brian Flores. You are suing the NFL because of a lack of diversity, and your representation in suing the NFL lacks diversity. Somebody got to make it make sense.
Oh, nobody gonna make that.
That's the only part that truly irks me is how can you sue the NFL for lacking diversity in their head coaching rankings, but the representation you have suing the NFL has less diversity than the NFL in which you're suing.
Okay.
The law firm has 6 partners. None of the partners are black. The head of marketing is not black. None of the paralegals are black. None of the attorneys are black. 19 individuals on that page. Please go check it for yourself and click on Meet the Team when you click on the website. And you do not see one black individual, yet they're representing you in a case against the NFL for a lack of black individuals. That, to me, was astonishing. And that, to me, made me say, wait a second, Brian Flores. If you're going to fight the fight here, then the people that are helping you fight the fight, they got to at least know how to fight the fight. Because how can someone be suing a organization for lack of diversity when their organization lacks diversity?
Will you be mine?